We were just thinking.
Just give us gossip.
Yeah,
What's
we
going
just
on?
want gossip.
Gossip.
What's like
I
stuff
hear
behind the scenes?
there is a huge storm coming, and it's here.
Exclusive.
No, I don't really have any gossip other than I think that this is going to be a great next few days. Who knows what's going to happen with this storm? But I do find it a little bit humorous. Like the people of Iowa are pretty tough. They've been through this cold weather before. They've been through. If you've lived here, like many of them, decades upon decades, some of them their whole life, you've been through a few tough winters. And a blizzard is not fun, but been through it before.
The idea that this is going to depress turnout, that's BS.
It could, but it would depress turnout overall, right? I mean, if you can't get there, if the roads aren't cleared, that could be difficult. But we're going to try to help and make sure everybody can get out and get to the caucus. It's important. It's so exciting the way it's done here. And President Trump deserves credit for making sure that the Iowa caucus remained the first in the country. Joe Biden didn't do that. And I know the people of Iowa take this very seriously. They know that they are the ones that get things going when it comes to presidential elections. And I'm glad it's in Iowa, frankly. You all know the people. You've talked to them for many, many weeks probably now. They're very diligent. They do their due diligence when it comes to deciding on which candidate they're for. And they're willing to listen to everybody. This is what makes Iowans so awesome. I'm blessed that I got to grow up here in this state. I would not trade it for anyone. We need more. The Quad Cities in Scott County along the Mississippi River. I actually lived until I was 10 in Bettendorf. Have you heard of that town?
Of course. Love that there.
And then when I was 10, my dad moved us out into the boondocks, like in the middle of nowhere, which turned out to be in the middle of everywhere. We were 10 miles, I think, from the next closest town, which had 270 people. So my neighbors were cows and farmers and,
That's what town was that? What area of the state was that?
It was actually in rural Donahue, Iowa. It's still in Scott County. It's probably about 20 minutes from the Quad Cities. So I got the best of both worlds. I got to live in the city, which, it's not like New York City, but Bettendorf was more of a city. And then I got to live out in completely rural Iowa.
And what did your parents do?
My dad was a history and government teacher and a really well-known and beloved football coach. I actually went to school in North Scott where my dad taught. Went to high school and he was my teacher.
Beloved football coach for the high school football?
For the school that I went to.
Was high school football was it one of those towns where it was a huge deal?
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty big deal. It was a pretty big deal. And then he eventually went on and coached offensive line coordinator for St. Ambrose University, which is in Davenport. Yeah, so I always joke he never ever walked into a bar or restaurant where someone didn't buy him a beer because he coached for 30 years. So there's always somebody who was like, "Coach, let me get you a beer," and they wanted to talk about old times. And it was probably the closest thing to having a celebrity parent as you could in rural Iowa. Somebody who taught for 35 years and coached for 30 years. And he was the kind of coach that helped. It was a great coach. Like the men. Yeah, he was.
Players, yeah.
Do you run into Iowans that know that history when you're campaigning?
I haven't campaigned all that much. When a year ago February, we came to Iowa, and I did an event in my hometown, and there were people from my high school out there. Many of whom had my dad as a teacher or a coach, and so that was pretty cool.
So Andrew found a tiny sliver of good news for Biden just now.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was interesting. This poll came out that 3/4 of undecided voters assume that Trump won't be the nominee.
How would that happen?
Because they assume, something
That's
will be
for the
him.
general,
Nikki Haley,
that's
yeah,
not
for the
in
general, not in Iowa.
Okay.
But they're under the impression somehow, or they're just hoping for some reason that
Are these Democrat voters or?
no. I mean, no, undecided.
Okay.
Yeah.
In both parties.
Yeah.
I'd
So
love
some
to.
certainly lean
And who was the
left,
pollster on that?
CNN.
Okay.
Enough
I
said.
have a media question.
Okay.
The first time around, the media got Trump so wrong, and the way they covered the election was so sort of backwards or blindfolded.
Speak for yourself.
Do you think that in the media coverage so far, do you feel that the media's learned its lesson and they're course correcting, or are they doubling down and making all the same mistakes they made before? I just can't tell now that we're at this sort of starting gun of this race. Have they learned the lessons of how to cover Trump and that movement, or are they making all the same mistakes again?
I see still a lot of the same culprits doing the same thing, getting it so wrong. I
Like
mean,
what?
look at, you were all better off 4 years ago, right? What do you mean you don't know? You weren't better off 4 years ago than you are
Well,
now?
Trump is right that.
Financially?
Yeah, Trump is right that he's a boon to journalism because he's a great story.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a good story.
But he is a good story. He is a
No,
good story.
you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about what he did. Let's talk about the lies, the Russiagate. Has anybody in the mainstream media apologized not only to President Trump for that, but to the American people? That divided our country, guys. That divided our country.
A lot of news divides.
We never talked about where that the coverage of where it originated, who was behind it. All of that never got the coverage it deserved. People won Pulitzer Prize over that garbage coverage, and there's been no apology. The people of this country deserve an apology. When you get a story wrong, you have to be able to admit it, and you should make a correction, and you should apologize for it. That's
Isn't
what I
that
think.
also true of the election being stolen?
Yeah, and we have real problems. And I didn't see your face down in Arizona.
No, but I mean, you guys got that story wrong. It wasn't stolen at all.
Yes, it was.
Oh, you're sticking to that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I challenge you to come.
You still think that?
Pardon
You
me?
still think that the election was stolen?
I know the facts in our case, and I didn't see your faces down there covering it. Come down and talk to Arizonans. I challenge you to do that. I mean, on the fact that on
And
election
specifically
day,
Arizona?
60% of our polling, our voting centers, because we moved away from precinct level voting, which is the most secure, we moved into big, massive voting centers because of COVID. And 60% of them were not fully operational. The machines didn't work, the wrong images were printed on the ballots, and those were in Republican areas. The lines were 4 hours long. People couldn't vote. People were walking away from line. And when they did stay in line for 4 hours and voted, only to get up there and realize that the machine wasn't going to accept their ballot. This is a problem.
Do you
So
think?
This happened in 60% of Republican areas. Had this been the reverse, and this was happening in Democrat areas, and there were lines that were 4 hours long, you guys would have your hair on fire. And rightfully so. I would be balking at that. I don't want any American to be disenfranchised when it comes to voting. And I would be just as angry if this were happening to Democrats. I want fair elections.
Do you think Trump talks about, given that you believe that, and let's just say you're right about that, that's a big deal, the election being stolen. Do you think Trump talks about it enough, given
I
what
think
you believe about that?
I think he's willing to talk about uncomfortable truths, and the people care about
Do you
that.
think he should make the general election a referendum on whether 2020 was stolen or not?
No, and I don't believe he is. I mean, the media constantly asks about it. You brought it up this time.
No, but like I think
People
most
go. Here's what people say: Trump is hooked on you. Can't get off the past. Can't get
But
away
if
from
you
the past.
think
They say the same thing to me, and I will tell you this as a mother. Any of you parents here? Parent?
Not
Parent?
Not a lot.
Not
You're
yet.
too young. Maybe not. No, you're not too young, actually.
Are you married?
No.
I want my kids to have a future, and we need to have secure, honest voting. That's all I want. And so I'm going to finish on that because I know that you're going to dwell on it, and then you're going to
I'm not gonna
write,
dwell on
and then
it.
you're going to write that I dwelled on it.
No,
And
no,
I'm not
no.
dwelling on it because what we're doing is trying to push changes to make sure that our elections are fair and honest, and we'll do what we can on that. But we're going to get people out to vote, and we're going to talk about the great policies we have to solve the problems that we
So
have.
what did you think of Biden's January 6th speech?
I did not watch it. I'm sure it was a whole bunch of nonsense. I've seen enough of his speeches to know the guy is completely not ready for prime time. I have not met him. Wait, let me think. Let me think if I've met him.
Did you see Trump put out a, is it an ad or a video?
Well, no, it was a video on Truth about the White House nursing home.
I did see that. That was actually funny. And a little bit too accurate, actually.
What is your like media diet on a daily basis? Like how much? What do you read? Like what do you respect? What do you love to absorb?
Well, I don't want to hurt any feelings, so I don't know if I want to answer.
We don't have feelings.
I think it's a good question because the media is so fragmented now. And
Yeah.
Like, it's like what do you read?
Oh boy, I read. I mean, obviously, I spend a lot of time on Twitter, like a lot of Americans, and some of the articles that I read. I love Just the News. I think that John Solomon is an exceptional reporter. I don't really follow the mainstream media. I mean, I'll read some of the headlines and peruse some of the stories, but as a journalist, I see the slant so obviously. I mean, even when you put descriptors in front of someone, like calling them an election denier, failed candidate, that's actually not being subjective. And so when that all started to change, when I see little things like that, I get really frustrated. When I see factual inaccuracies about me or anybody else, I don't see when you write about Hillary Clinton that you start with that. You don't say election denier Hillary Clinton. Have you ever written that?
Which one? Which election?
Well,
She was
I know
denying
what she's saying,
2016.
because she's saying the Russians stole it from her or whatever. Yeah.
She was denying 2016's legitimacy, and I never see you guys
Yeah.
write that about her.
Well,
That's
they-
true.
Hillary Clinton.
You want a Pulitzer for ripping on Hillary.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
but you don't put those little descriptive. You don't
Well,
put
you
those little
just said you're
descriptors,
not
and
reading us,
and
so
it's
how-
biased. It's biased when you do it. It's not your job to do that.
Yeah, it's just something I was wondering as
But-
I was walking around here, like all these Republican operatives who are working for Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis, it's sort of like their last stand to try to stop Trump, and if he bowls right over them, are those people just excommunicated if he gets back in for the next 4 years? Are they just out?
Listen, I grew up in a big family, 9 of us.
Yeah.
Um, 8 in my family growing up. I have 2 kids, but in my family growing up in Iowa, 9 kids. So we have 8 girls and 1 boy. And sometimes in a family that close, and we lived in a small house, we shared beds, and we didn't have a lot of room, and we didn't have a lot of money. There were fights, knockdown dragouts with your sisters. If you have sisters, you know that girl fights can be even more brutal than boy fights. And at the end of the week, we came together as family. You might be mad for 2 days. You might even hold a grudge and be mad for 3 days. But by the end of the week, you're back together. I want to come together. I don't want to be divided as Americans. I want to come together, even with Democrats. We have a lot of problems in our country. Our border is wide open. Just a minute. Our border is wide open. We have fentanyl pouring across. I've talked to literally dozens of moms and dads and sisters and brothers who've lost a family member to fentanyl poisoning. And these are lives we don't get back. They're lives we don't get back. We have to start solving these problems. We're so divided as a country. I think the media plays into that. I want to start coming together. Eventually we have to. And so I believe that we're going to be able to come together. There may not be a lot of jobs for them, but you only hire so many of those people, right?
Yeah, right.
In each campaign,
Is
you
it
don't.
harder, would it be harder to forgive DeSantis or Nikki Haley for their
I don't hold
the
grudges.
campaigns they ran?
How do you think they're doing? Have you watched them in
Their
Iowa?
debates or
Yes, I
anything?
have.
Yeah.
I think we've learned a lot about both of them. And, Nikki Haley represents kind of a different side of the Republican Party that I believe the American people have grown weary of. They're not interested in, they're not interested in putting America last. They want to put America first. They know the policies of President Trump helped make their lives better. They know we were more secure. Our economy was moving forward full steam ahead. We were doing great. And now they're maxing out credit cards just to get by, not for fancy vacations, just to get by. They're dipping into their 401k, taking a huge hit, having to dip into that. They're watching the border be wide open now for 3 years. Living in Arizona, we are feeling it. Everyone's feeling it. And they're saying this is not working. So I think that the kind of warmonger side of the party is not of interest to the voters anymore. We don't want to start endless wars. We like that President Trump didn't start any wars. And I think that we've learned a lot about Ron DeSantis. He's not the retail politician that you need to be, I think, to connect with voters. And I don't know that you can learn
He
that.
seemed a little better. Was it last night or the night before?
The night
He was
before.
giving an interview. He seemed not as
After.
robotic.
Improved a little bit.
But what do you say to the Republicans in
Let
Iowa?
her answer a question before we move on.
So what was, did I answer that
Just,
one?
I wondered, he seems a little better, a little less.
Oh, yeah.
robotic.
Well, you get better on the campaign trail.
Right.
When you're working and talking to people constantly, you get a little bit better. But, here's the deal. We have an incredible candidate in President Trump. He's done the job and done it well. He is the candidate. He is going to be the nominee. And it seems like a vanity project.
Would you want to be vice president?
I'm running for U.S. Senate, and I'm really excited to help President Trump in the Senate in Washington,
So
D.C.
you wouldn't want to switch over?
I just think we have such an opportunity to pick up a Senate seat in Arizona, and it's an important Senate seat. We need to take back the majority in the Senate to get make sure that when President Trump gets in office, that he's not being thwarted at every turn, that his cabinet picks can get through, that his Supreme Court justices, and more importantly, legislation, so that we don't have to. We can secure our border, make legislation that requires a secure border for the citizens of this country.
Kari, if you could push one of your opponents out of the race, who would you want out, Gallego or Sinema?
Oh boy, that is a good question.
That's kind of the question of that campaign.
This one is good.
It's good.
I don't know. Push one
Not
of
for
them.
personal reasons. I mean for political reasons. But you could answer it on personal terms instead if you want.
I don't have an answer for that. I'm ready for a three-way race. I'm ready for a two-way race.
What would be better for you, Gallego or Sinema? Who would be easier to beat one-on-one? Like it seems like.
I can't answer it. I mean, I have to really do the pros. I'd have to weigh that and go.
But does the research? So the research is not clear on that.
The thing is that Gallego has a ton of. He's going to have the Soros money. Well, they won't have FTX money this go around, but they'll find another way. And so they're going to have that kind of Democrat operative,
And
machine.
You're very polarizing, so there'll be a lot of money running.
I'm polarizing?
Well, for Democrats, yes, there'll be a lot of
I
people.
don't know why I'm polarizing for. You know why I'm polarizing for Democrats?
I'm not saying that as a
But you know
criticism.
why
I'm just saying he'll be able to raise a lot of money.
I'm polarizing because you guys have made me polarizing. I worked for 3 decades, worked very hard every day, going into the homes of the people of Arizona, and was beloved by the people. And then when I decided to run as an America First politician, to run for office to make my state better for my children's future and the future of the state I love, the media went batshit crazy and started attacking me. Our home press does at least 2 attack pieces a day. Not many people can withstand that. And I have, and thankfully I have a relationship with the people of Arizona. They go, all these things the media is saying about her aren't true. It's not true. We invited her into our homes for 3 decades. She's certainly not a racist. She's not a neo. All the crap that was said about me, and I'm not pointing to all of you. They just didn't believe it. And they're doing it again. So the only reason that I would be polarizing is because the media has tried to paint me as a polarizing figure. But let me ask this real quick. I ask you, what is polarizing about somebody who wants a secure border? What is polarizing about somebody who wants to make sure fentanyl is not falling into the hands of our kids? What is polarizing about wanting to help get the people who are chronic street homeless off the streets, get them better? I have policies, real policies, to end chronic street homelessness in Arizona, get these people better, make them contributing citizens, restore quality of life so that you could go and use the parks that your taxpayer money keeps up. Right now, people in Arizona would never go to the park. They're all lined with tents. There's needles. They're just, it's a wasteland. And so I just want common sense policies. And that's threatening to the system as it is.
I have a question.
I'm a threat to the system because I'm not controllable. I'm not bribable. You can't blackmail me. There's no dirt on me. And therefore, they're like, holy smokes, we got to get rid of this one.
Since we're on the eve of the election and you're a key Trump surrogate, can you sum up or describe the mood in Trump world right now? I mean, do all you guys feel giddy? Like he's about to how does it feel? You're all sort of here on the ground and just sort of ready.
You know
Yeah.
what I would say about the Trump world is I've never seen such a buttoned up operation of people who just are focused on what needs to be done so that we can win and save our country.
How do
And-
you think it compares to 2016 in terms of this operation?
You know what? I wasn't
You weren't that
involved. I was actually from where you guys were looking in.
Did
And
you come and report on this back then?
no, I didn't.
You weren't.
'Cause
But
it
Trump came to Arizona quite a bit, and I always talk to him and say Arizona was really a launch pad. Arizona is where people went, whoa, 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 whoa.
Did you interview him a lot in that cycle?
I had 2 exclusive interviews, one-on-one interviews with President Trump as a journalist, and I had an exclusive interview with Barack Obama as well.
Wait, I'm sure you've told this story before, I just don't know the answer. When was it the moment when you said, you know what, I'm not going to be a journalist anymore, I want to join that movement?
It was really during COVID. I'd worked so hard. I came up, from nothing in Iowa and worked my way through University of Iowa, paid my own way through college by working. Now you can't even afford to do that now. It's so hard to do that. But I was able to work, put myself through college, work hard to get my dream job without having any, ins in the business, just through hard work and a work ethic. And really had achieved what I thought was huge success in a job I loved. And then during COVID, I realized, oh my gosh, we are putting out propaganda. This is half-truths. Why is there no curiosity about the origins of this? Why, when we ask, we're shut down immediately? Why, when we push and say, what's going on with this vaccine? Why are we trying to cancel people who don't want it or who ask questions? I started asking questions, wondering why there wasn't an appetite to cover these stories fairly, wondering why we were calling these absolute riots in the streets where businesses were being burnt to the ground, cop cars were being torched, people were being beaten to death in the streets, and we were calling that peaceful protesting.
Like you felt like it was happening in your newsroom.
I was watching it in my newsroom, everywhere, and saying, this is no longer journalism, it's propaganda. And I was feeling sick about it, and I didn't want to do it. So I walked away, and an amazing thing happened when I put out a video telling the people why I was leaving. The people reached out to me by the hundreds and said, would you please run for office? We trust you. You understand Arizona, you understand the issues, and we need some people in politics who we want to vote for and trust. And I thought, maybe I was naive because I thought that that's how our country was set up, that citizens would step forth and run for office. But the machine doesn't like that. I quickly learned when I jumped in.
Yeah.
Right, but you have the skill that a lot of politicians don't have, because like Ron DeSantis, they have a hard time on TV. You already have.
That's true. You're very compelling.
I think that growing up in Iowa, you've talked to Iowans, right? They actually have an uncanny ability to connect with people. Good listeners, I think, for the most part. I hope you're finding that with the welcoming people of this great state. There's a lot of time when it's cold in the winter, sit down and have long conversations with people. And that's
So
maybe where I got a
when
little
you
bit
do
of
that, what do you think it is that about Trump that the people who love him don't care about the legal problems? They don't care about what Biden complains about January 6th. I mean, what is it that every time we think he's in trouble, his numbers go up?
I think we're just more discerning of what's really happening. Maybe the people in the media are naive and are looking at all of these cases against him. Do you look at these and go, these are legit? I'm just curious. Do you look at these cases and go, this is legit?
I think some are stronger than others, if you look carefully. I mean, if you look at like the
People-
intellectually honest legal analysts, I think they'll put the Manhattan case on one side, and they'll put the documents case over here in terms of least to most, in terms of this legal merits, right? But I'm
But
not,
certainly you look at at least some of these and say, they're completely going after him because he's a front runner and they're trying to stop him. The people see that. I don't know that you guys see it, but the people see that. And the people are onto it. They're seeing a two-tier justice system. And they don't like injustice in Iowa. They don't like it in Arizona. Americans don't like injustice. And they're seeing this two-tiered system.
Who was saying last night at dinner, one of the reporters was saying that they'd never seen a stronger bond between a candidate, David Chang, a candidate and his
And the people?
fan base.
I agree. I think it's even stronger than Ronald Reagan's connection. Ronald Reagan was my hero as a kid. In 1980, I was 10 when he won, and I remember being so excited. I grew up and got a great patriotic education in this great state. Every day we said the Pledge of Allegiance. We sang a few patriotic songs, and with the whole student body, and then we went off to our classes and learned real American history, not to hate our country. We learned skills that we could actually use. We learned critical thinking, and I'm so glad that I had that. And Ronald Reagan is who inspired me to become a Republican. And that's why I registered when I was 18 to be a Republican. But the bond that President Trump has, because we're watching, I guess I would equate it to watching, we never want to see somebody being knocked around and punched. If you see a fight breaking out and you see somebody who doesn't deserve it getting hit and hit over, you're like, oh, this is wrong. We're seeing that. Thank God we got a strong fighter. President Trump is so strong.
But Trump doesn't abide by Reagan's 11th commandment. I mean, he does mock other Republicans.
There's a lot of never Trumpers out there, and you have to wonder if the people he's mocking are truly Republicans. A lot of them are actually voting for someone like Biden. That doesn't make you a Republican. If you're voting for Biden,
No, I mean,
you're
what
not
he
a
says about
Republican.
other Republican candidates,
Yeah.
That was never done in politics before, where you could belittle people the way Trump and his fans seem to love it.
But also, I think back when Ronald Reagan was president, other Republicans
Like
didn't.
McCain.
Other
when
Republicans.
He made fun of him not being able to raise.
That's not what he was trying to say with that. He was trying to say he didn't have the. He promised for 8 years that he would get rid of Obamacare and make it better. We would make it better is really what we need to do, right? 20 million people are on it. Let's make it better. And he was just trying to say he didn't vote for it. And everyone remembers that day when the thumb went down.
No, I
But
know.
the media tries to turn it into a big moment, and it wasn't that, and the people see
It's a
that.
new thing in politics, though, where he doesn't get in trouble for making fun of people's physical.
You could turn that around, though, Maureen, and say that the other Republicans are not following President Reagan's 11th commandment, right? They're not being supportive of President Trump. We have an incredibly popular candidate who won more votes than any other incumbent in history. They're not being supportive. You know, if you're taking a hit to the face, you better punch back.
Can I ask you a question about, did you watch the town hall, the Fox town hall with Trump the other night? You watched the debate instead?
I've seen a bunch of clips.
You watched the debate, you went with the debate.
No, I didn't watch either. I actually, I have not had much time with my children, and we had a date planned with our kids, and it got canceled due to like a scheduling problem, and we rescheduled it. So I was spending time with my kids. My son's going back to college, and we knew that things were going to get pretty busy on the campaign trail. So
he was debunking the idea.
I watched some of the highlights.
Yeah, he was debunking the idea that he would be a dictator. You know, I guess sometimes Democrats take something he says.
Well, I see what we have in the White House right now, and it sure seems like a dictator. Someone who's trying to jail their opponent. It's crazy times. What was your question about the debate?
Well, the two things I thought were interesting that he talked about. One was the dictator thing, but there's not much to say about that. But the abortion question I thought was really interesting. This pro-life activist from Iowa stood up, and I'll paraphrase her. She basically said, very, very respectfully, but semi-confrontationally, she criticized Trump for, in her mind, criticizing pro-lifers for recent Republican losses. And she worried about where he was on abortion, being against the heartbeat bill, and in her view, moderating his pro-life position. And he responded.
I did see that.
Exchange.
I did see
She
that.
saw his
I thought
response.
it was great.
Yeah, but
We wouldn't even be having these conversations
That's what he said.
not for President Trump.
Yeah. But have
And how many other, Republicans said that, everyone has talked about it. It's unconstitutional Roe v. Wade.
Actually, you think he's got the right message on that?
I do think he has the right message. I think we've always said this should be up to the states. And now the states are going to decide we're going to have 50 different abortion laws. To be honest, we Republicans get so trapped in what the law is instead of trying to help women. So I had 2 children. I didn't even know I wasn't going to get an abortion. I wanted to have my children. And so I didn't even know what the law was. I'll be honest, when I was pregnant, I wasn't even following that. I was going to have my children, but I'm not in a situation where I was afraid. I was in a healthy marriage. We were happy to have those babies. But there's a lot of women who are afraid, and they walk into an abortion clinic. And the left has been lying to them for decades. They've been lying to our young people for decades. They are not pro-choice. They give you one choice. You walk into that clinic, and they give you one choice, and it is to take the life of the baby. I want to give real choices to women so that they can make.
What's your campaign position on it for this?
My campaign position is my human position on it, and I want to help more women so they have healthier, better choices. And so honestly, if the law never changed, we could still bring down the number of abortions if we actually support women. And that means, why are they in there? Why are they going into an abortion clinic? Can't afford their baby. And I'll tell you what, in Joe Biden's world, more women are opting for abortion because this economy is so treacherous. They can't afford their baby. So we need to actually encourage, give baby bonuses to give women support, encourage marriage, I don't know if your parents are still alive, your moms are still alive. Ask your mother her greatest achievement, greatest accomplishment. And she will say, what?
She had 6 kids, and I was the 5th, so she usually says her 5th child.
Yes, exactly. greatest joy in your mom's life was you and your siblings. My mom had 9. I was the 9th one. I think I was the favorite too. But you ask any woman on the planet, any woman on the planet, and they will say that, any mother on the planet, they'll say that's their greatest joy. I want to make sure that women have the option to have that. Don't have that taken from them because they can't afford the baby, because they don't think they can do it, because they don't think there's someone who would love their baby if they can't take care of it. We need to give women options, and that's what I think we should do.
Are you for the exceptions, like Ms. Trump said? Yeah.
I am for the exceptions. Mother's life, I think that's very important.
Rape, incest, mother's life?
Listen to me. I want to make sure that we have access to abortion for a mother who is, her life is being threatened, you know, with the baby. Although that's so rare, you know that, exceptionally rare. Rape, incest, there have to be exceptions for that. But here's the problem: you guys get so tied up on that, you never talk about what the Democrats want. My question is, and I want you to ask this to other people: when do you stop thinking it's okay to kill a baby in the mother's womb? When? At what week? Well, you guys do a lot of reporting on it and bash a lot of Republicans, so I think you need to figure out where you stand. When is it not okay to take the life of a baby in the mother's womb? 10 weeks, 15 weeks, 20 weeks?
Do you believe that most Democrats support
6 months?
the late-term abortions?
Well, I'm asking you, is it okay at 6 months?
I don't know. I never know what to say about this.
6 months? 7 months? 9 months? Because I'll tell you
To
what.
turn things around and ask the reporters questions.
I am
That's
running
why I
a-
got into this business, so I wouldn't have to answer these things.
I am running against 2 people who are okay with a baby at 9 months ready to give birth, taking that baby's life.
Do they have identical positions on abortion?
Yes, they're both they're for it right up until birth. Right up until birth. And the American people, I don't believe, are for that. I don't think people are for that. But I want to say one thing, and then let's talk about some other issues, because we're going to have to go. Are we okay on
all
time,
the easy
guys?
ones. Election denialism,
I
abortion.
never
we gotta
walk
get
away
trans
from
rights.
a hard question.
I just see your
In
husband, did you
Hungary,
say?
in Hungary,
What kind of camera is that?
in Hungary, let me answer my final question, give you my final answer. I had a great opportunity to talk to Viktor Orban, who I think is an incredible prime minister. And I said, how did you bring down your abortion rate? You cut it in half in Hungary, and you didn't change a law. Not one law was changed. And he said, we started to support families. We started to encourage people to get married. That's what makes life wonderful, having relationships with people. The phone relationship, that's not exciting. A human relationship is exciting. It's wonderful. Having a family, that's what the joy in life is about. So we encourage that. We actually gave people bonuses when they got married. So if you paid, I forget what it was, 16% is the tax rate. You get married, you pay 15%. Have a baby, you get another point. This is in Hungary, they do this. If a woman has 4 children, she never pays taxes again. We bail out banks. We bail out all kinds of corporations, multinational corporations. We throw tons of money, bail them out when they need it, but we never do anything to help the American family. And it's about time we switch that. We're actually seeing a collapse in birth rates, and we need to make that come up a little bit. So I want to encourage families, because I know that's where the joy in life is.
All right, fair. Can I ask you one question about Viktor Orban? Why is he such a hero on the right these days?
I think because his policies. Have you been to Hungary? You can walk the streets; they're so safe. The policies work. These are common sense policies, and the reason that he's not a hero, frankly, with everybody, is because the media does much like they did to President Trump to him. They try to castigate him. They try to drag him down, run hit pieces on him. He's done great things. If you ask the people of Hungary if they're happy, they are very happy. They're very happy.
Well, it makes a difference.
Yeah, thank you so much.
See, I
Very
enjoy being around people. Yeah. Now I'm really looking forward to seeing how these stories are written, guys. Listen, after all this is done, we're going to come together. The Republican Party is going to come together. And you know what? And when President Trump wins, the American people are going to come together. I'm not going to fight with my fellow Americans. I love this country. I have been so blessed. I feel emotional. I feel emotional when I think about this country. And I want to bring this country together. I know President Trump does as well. And I think you know him personally, right? He's a really good man. He's an incredible man, and I'm going to do whatever I can to get him elected because I think we're at a tipping point in our country that we'll never be able to turn back from. And President Reagan said it. We're about to go into 1,000 years of darkness if we don't get this right. And it's going to be reliant on the media being fair, honest journalists. And people who've been doing this longer, I don't know how long all of you have been working in it, you know what honest journalism is. And we've got to start being honest with the people and not running pieces that are dragging down people because we don't agree with their politics. That's what I would ask of you
Well,
guys.
have you ever seen anything that upsets you from
The New York Times?
No. I work at
Where do I start?
I work at Politico.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Don't
Politico,
be
I'm
shy about
sorry.
reaching out.
Which one was the New York Times?
Tell
Those two.
if you have complaints.
Oh, okay.
My first job was at the Daily Caller.
Everything is his
so-
fault.
Okay.
Wait, Kari, you've been very generous.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
But wait,
thank you
last
so
thing,
much.
you saw Trump the other night, he said he knows who his running mate is going to be.
I'm surprised it took you this long to ask
Who
this
is it?
question.
Who is it? Did
I
you
don't
ask him
know.
yet?
I don't know.
Who do you
Who
think
would
it
you
is?
like it to be?
The great thing is, our movement is so incredible.
Oh,
You
no,
could
please
almost,
think,
you
Andy.
could
Give us some
Do you
literally,
think it's going to be a
you
woman?
could take,
Yeah, do you think
you
it's
could
gonna
take
be a
almost anybody in our movement, line them up, and close your eyes and point.
But the
You think it
fact that
would
he says he
behoove him to
knows
pick a
who
woman?
it is, like, who's the first person that jumped into your mind when
I
you
have
saw
no,
that?
I have no idea. All I know is that whoever he picks, frankly, he could probably pick any Iowan. There's so much common sense. There's such good people. They love this country so much. You could probably just go out to one of his rallies in Iowa and just pick any one of them. He's such a strong, he is the strongest president we've ever had and the strongest candidate. I don't think it matters all that much who the VP is.
But what about woman or man? Do you think he's going to pick a woman?
He's going to pick a great American. I'm not
Don't you
as
think he
wrapped.
should tell
I'm
us
not as
before-
wrapped up on
if
women
he
and men.
knows who it
I don't
is-
like all of that.
But if
We're
he knows
just
who it is,
Americans.
If you're an Iowa voter and you know he knows, shouldn't he tell the Iowa voters before they caucus on Monday?
I don't know.
Do you think he's going to
Oh.
pick Nikki Haley?
I have no idea who he's going to pick. I know he's going to pick someone great. And whoever that person is, I will be first in line, lining up to vote enthusiastically for them.
Who do you want it to be?
There's a million great choices.
What if it was you?
Oh, I'm running for U.S. Senate.
Yeah,
The
I
great state of
answered that
Arizona.
already.
He should pick Marjorie and make it a blonde ambition tour.
He's gonna pick someone great.